It makes me sad remembering.
Will said he'll be right back. I know. Where's my panel?
You need tree shakers. I still get, I'm like, I'm 55. I can get on the tree.
Quick, my panel's missing.
Oh. It's not time yet still. You still have like 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
Well, I can go up there if you want, because I'm in the meetings, but I'm not a part of the panel.
Say that you guys get more of an IT person right here. I did it for 20 years.
Oh, okay. No, you're doing excellent.
Before going to environmental. So like the other staff doesn't know how to do stuff.
In the first meeting I was at, there were like 3 people trying to figure it out. There's like one actually doing it, and 2. Yeah, Desiree.
Hi.
She is. She is. She is. You take photos of them? No, when they're up here. Everyone is.
Me too. Moving up to. Same old, same old. Are you?
Charlotte. Oh.
They're all up front. When it gets crowded, yeah.
Okay.
What do you got to put on your Forest Service report?
Well, we could put this on the BTNRC website
How
too.
good's your camera? You got like a iPhone 12 or something like that.
It dies. I mean, not dies, it lives.
No, I'm just saying I could take a picture with my camera
Yeah.
and then send it to you. Yeah, I'll do that. I got my phone here. It's all charged, bro. It's always charged.
Oh, thank you so much. Should I give this to you?
Generally, the second session runs a little late because everybody wrote in late for the first one, and they're getting full.
I like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't just saying that's what happens.
Yeah.
I started mine about 5 minutes late.
Really?
It was the first session, basically.
So.
Well, they'll be in.
They know. Angela's?
Everybody here, pass around the sign sheet, give your name, where you're from, and then your email address.
Sally.
Yeah. It's bad when you're the boss and the subordinates. Do you know where your staff is? I don't know what time. I think I got them at 2 a.m., so they're probably in their bed.
Robert.
The Paul Potty was with me.
Okay.
How do you get a little water?
Wait. Is that thumbs up meaning we're about to start right now? We're starting? Okay. Okay, should we close the door or does it not matter? Oh, you have a seat right there. Right next to Will, yeah. Okay, we're about to start. Okay, so we're starting now? Okay. Should we close the door in the back? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Melissa Navis. I'm a tribal liaison with the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest, and I'm in love with this committee. So I am so excited that you're here with us, and you'll learn a little bit more about us and what we are getting involved in, what we are all about. And we have a panel that will be sharing their experience and why they feel that this committee is important and why this conversation is not only timely, but it should have happened yesterday. So without further ado, I'm about to begin. There is a yellow pad of paper with a pen that is circulating around the room. If you are interested in being on the committee listserv, just write down your email and your phone number. There's no obligation to participate. You can simply just be notified of when the meetings are and then when you are available. Or if you know of somebody that may be interested in this conversation that we're having and would like to be in the know of any events that are coming up, then you're welcome to forward that email. So again, a yellow pad of paper circulating, sharing our listserv with anyone who might be interested. So here we go. This session is called the Bi-State Tribal Natural Resources Committee, BTNRC for short. Like I said, the overview, we're going to share who we are, what we've accomplished, and what's to come. The panelists that we have with us today, Charlotte Lang, Mono Lake Kazitika Tribe of California, and Nevada Chair. We have Danielle Gutierrez, Big Pine Paiute Tribe Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. We have Robert Gomez, Tubatl Latl Tribe of Kern Valley, Chair is here with us. Wilfred Nabahe, Battle Mountain Bureau of Land Management Native American Coordinator. We have Angela Williams, Mono Lake Kazitika Tribe, and me, Melissa Navis. I'll be helping facilitate the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest Tribal Relations Specialist. The executive leadership is comprised of Janet Mendez. She's with the Bridgeport Indian Colony, tribal member. She's the BTNRC chair. She's not with us today. We have Angela Williams, Mono Lake Kazitika. She's the vice chair of the committee. And Charlotte Lang. She is the BTNRC facilitator. So our history, conversation started in 2015 regarding an incident that occurred where pinyon trees were cut by the forest. And as a response, a series of meetings followed. And as the conversations grew, the power of a conversation, right? It grew until it ended up being a 3-day meeting in 2016 called the Traditional Ecological Knowledge, the Tech Summit, to talk about pinyon juniper ecosystems and tribal concerns. And what came out of that Tech Summit in 2016 was, this is an important topic. We need to talk about pinyon trees, and we need to keep it going in a more formalized way. So the ask was, at the end of the summit, can we create a committee? And a committee was formed that was supported by the Nevada Indian Commission and tribes along the California-Nevada border. And as the committee started, bylaws were created to set the framework of why are we here and who is involved? What is the goal of these conversations? So I have a copy there of the bylaws, which are on our website. And we have regularly quarterly meetings. And this is an example of the agenda that we normally have. We start off with a blessing. We do welcome and introductions. Many times we have some core members. We have people that come and go and everybody in between. We might see you once. We might see you at every meeting. The important thing is the conversation is taking place. We talk about pinyon juniper. We also do a round robin. So the point of the committee is to share agency updates, but most importantly is to hear from the tribes, where the concerns are. What should we take back to our offices? It's a somewhat semi-formal committee in that it's loose enough that we are not bound by a bunch of red tape and strict rules, but it's structured enough so that we can meet regularly and there's a set of expectations. We're gonna meet, we're gonna talk, and let's see what we can do together. So the purpose, as an overview, we educate and facilitate. Now, let me emphasize, the tribal voice educates. The agencies there are to support the tribal voice and see what we can do to do our job better. This is not government to government consultation. That's imperative. We're talking about a coffee talk conversation so that we can all not only build our relationships of getting to know one another, but also understand, okay, why are decisions being made? It's an intertribal and interagency forum. Information is disseminated, and then plans are made. The geographic footprint that we discuss is the range of the Bi-State sage-grouse. So why do we have those boundaries? Initially, in 2015, regarding the pinyon trees, it was a sage-grouse issue. Trees were cut over sage-grouse to protect the habitat of the sage-grouse, protect the sage-grouse. So funding for that was provided by the Executive Oversight Committee, which is comprised of Nevada, state, and federal agencies. So the conversation is the boundaries of the range of the Bi-State sage-grouse. We have, in terms of tribal involvement, all the way north to Pyramid Lake, all the way down south, Lone Pine, Timbisha. So the Bi-State area east of the Sierra Nevada, east of Carson City to the White Mountains. Just want to highlight a couple of updates just recently that underscore this conversation. It's kind of funny. I think the truth is out there, and then eventually there's legislation and acts that follow the truth that everybody always knew. But this underscores our commitment. Both the USDA and the Department of Interior, they have a secretarial order on tribal co-stewardship of public lands and waters. So it's really interesting. This committee, I can tell you right now, we exist because the heart is involved. This is a critically important conversation that needs to happen. And as our heart brings us together, then these plans come into place. But as with anything, when you're working with federal and state, we got to have these pieces of paper that validate, substantiate the conversations that are critically important. Just another map. I love maps. We have Nevada and California involved. So the picture on the left is a map of tribes in Nevada. The picture on the right, tribes in California. The picture in the middle shows both. So we span both states. We had another summit in 2021, which was really interesting, trying to navigate the whole COVID situation. It was a hybrid meeting. We hemmed and hawed. We would like to meet in person. That's where the power is, right? When we can see each other's faces and hear our tones of voice. For me, that's where the magic happens, when we're in front of each other. But then we also had to take into consideration, we might have to suddenly cancel everything because of COVID numbers. And we had 2 days of virtual meetings, followed by a third day that was a field visit. It was incredibly successful, incredibly powerful. A federal, state agency, tribal voice. We had music. And the governor gave us an award at the end recognizing the significance of this. On behalf of the state of Nevada, Governor Sisolak. So just recently, we were out in the field on August 10, and we did a field trip. And we looked at areas in Bodie Hills to see the state of the pinyon trees and to have an open dialogue with the tribes, with the federal agencies present, to talk about what's going on here and share different proposed actions on the ground by the tribes in that area. So as a result of the August 10 meeting, again, the conversation was, okay, so we have a committee, we have field trips. We need to focus on this pinyon conversation and take it a next step further. Can we have a organized meeting that continues this conversation? And it was determined on August 10th that we should establish a pinyon subcommittee. Once again, that's tribally led. Agencies will be in support. Our next meeting, actually, we just had our last meeting. So the next meeting is proposed for January. Recent collaborations. There's a groundswell of conversations that are happening, multiple sectors, tribally led, regarding pinyon juniper. And this is another project. It's a research project headed by the Forest Service. Right now, this is a planning grant. We were just awarded over $800,000 by Sierra Nevada Conservancy for this conversation of how can we collaborate with each other to talk about how to move forward and taking care of these ecosystems. So a few highlights: most woodlands in the Great Basin occur in federally managed lands. That's why federal and state are coming together. Our goal is to have a strong foundation to sustain shared stewardship. That was the grant we were recently awarded. There's no proposal for work. This is conceptual. So right now we're having an open conversation with this research project on what are the concerns, what are we seeing collectively, and inevitably, how do we move forward? And here we go to the end of the presentation. Are there any questions? We have our panel here, and they are, if you could introduce yourself so they could place a face to the name, and we can take it from there. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Angela Williams Eddy, Mono Lake Gazitica. I am the vice chair of the Bi-State and a tribal member from Mono Lake Gazitica.
I'm Charlotte Lang, Mono Lake Gazitica tribal chairperson, and I'm the facilitator for this program. Thank you for coming and listening. We've accomplished quite a great things with Forest Service and our partners, and this is a step we need to really start taking because our Indian lands are being destroyed, and we need to have that strong voice. And us as Indian people, thank God we're teaming up with Nevada as well. We need to make some changes in Indian country.
Ma, Yewan Robert Gomez, Timiwal Tebato Labal. My name is Robert Gomez. I'm the chairman for the Tebato Labal tribe, which in our language means people who eat pine nuts. So it's really appropriate that we are taking care of the pine nuts, like all of you are experiencing also.
Good morning, everyone. Wilfred Nabahi, Battle Mountain District, BLM, Native American Coordinator. Everyone here is on the California side. I'm the one on the Nevada side. So with respect to Bureau of Land Management, we're comprised of both the Mount Lewis Field Office and the Tonopah Field Office. And so the Tonopah Field Office, in the map that Melissa shared earlier, there's that section just near the White Mountains that goes over in the Nevada border, and that's where the tie-in with the Tonopah Field Office comes into play. So that's my quick introduction, and thank you for participating.
Manahu, Inaniane, Janabeka Kateras, Tovawahamatu, Kimadu. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Tovawahamatu's, federally recognized as Big Pine Paiute Tribe of the Owens Valley. And I was a previous chairperson for the Bi-State Natural Tribal Resource Committee. And it's been a great opportunity of working and collaborating with Nevada tribes and agencies. And I would really, really strongly encourage decisions we've been making earlier, but at the last meeting, was it's important for the Native people to be out there with these lands prior to meeting with agencies. All respect to the agencies, and their support is greatly appreciated. But I think we need to call back into our own heritage, into our own natural ways, and everybody meet in your specific areas when you're gathering prior to agencies being involved. So you're out there on the lands, honoring and respecting those lands as a long time ago when we would gather together. I think that's very important to bring those songs and prayers back in ceremony and a collaboration of all united tribes into these lands and to speak for them and for them to hear that harmony again of gathering of all nations, of all people. And I think that's really important. And that's what our lands need right now. Our communication back with them. Thanks, Mana.
Great. Thank you so much. Cliff.
Cliff Banuelos, Intertribal Council of Nevada. Could you talk briefly about the TEK summit that you guys did last year and what you guys got out of that?
Is there anyone here who would like to? I'm happy to chime in. Is there anybody on the panel that would like to elaborate on the TEK summit?
The TEK Summit is Technological Education Knowledge, backwards, Traditional Education Knowledge, sorry about that. We had been in planned with all the agencies prior to when they had it at Stewart, and we were talking about how can we do it different this time and more powerful. We invited Deb Holland. She was unable to attend, but Governor Sisolak attended. Gavin Newsom wasn't able to make it as well, but Governor Sisolak really had an impact, and having his support really helped through Nevada and bring in their agencies together to make a really nice summit. Virtually for 2 days, we had so much information, so much agencies, and really seeing the collaborative together. And I guess we always say we get promises, but people were willing to stick their necks out to get things going on our lands. And the pinyon trees in one of the sections of Nevada was just destroyed. And we don't want that to our lands throughout Indian country. That's our traditional food. We need to protect that, as well as the birds and animals and plants that live around these trees. But it also brought into fire awareness to protect those trees, and bringing in fire crews like CAL FIRE, the Forest Service agencies, BLM, and really starting to put together a plan, which we got out of that. And Melissa touched on that about we've teamed up with the Inyos and the BLM and got a grant for $50,000 to start taking care of it and start a youth group out of this, and having them appreciate their traditional lands, because unfortunately we're all starting to become elders ourselves. So we need to pass these traditions on and the honor of their lands for the poor. And then we've just applied for some more monies for this project. We're going to be taking care of 1,000 acres of pinyon trees and bringing the kids forth to clean them out like our elders used to do in Pine camps, and taking all the fire, the fuel that's destructive. And we have some great mountains called the Bodie Hills that are just flourishing, and we want to protect those from fire. So out of this TEK Summit, those projects are happening now in our neck of the woods. So we really appreciated that. And we had traditional songs, traditional gatherings. We had the community all around us partake and come and build those relationships with non-Indians as well. Because, as it is, it takes a whole community to make these things happen as well, and knowledge. And it was just really great. And the field trip had a really big impact. Wind kind of came up a little bit, but Mono Lake is being threatened, and we really wanted to bring awareness to our water issues as well with this TEK Summit. So everybody in the water resource boards also attended, and that was really great to see the collaboration.
Thank you, Charlotte. Would anyone else like to elaborate on the TEK Summit on the panel? Danelle.
Yeah, the tech summit that we held was it was very well participated by agencies and tribes, and we had great presentations. One was regarding the Owens Valley ancient irrigation ditches. That is significant in tying our people to the lands. Those irrigation ditches were the network used for various other agencies when they came and took our lands and forced marched us from our lands. And it's still a battle for our water rights where we're at, but to have that history embedded into the lands itself, and there's no way of denying who had first user rights within these areas. And I think that's pretty amazing to have that knowledge be shared. And the Tech Summit went very well. It was on Zoom due to the COVID virus that was going around, and there was some little bit of issues here and there, but it went really well. We had a moderator, Mr. Richard Arnold, Pahrump Paiute, elder and representative, and previous chair of the BTNRC. So he was really great moderator and kept the flow going of conversations. The agencies brought forth so much information also in collaboration with tribes, and it's really important. I'm really proud to be part of this committee because it allows tribes within the Great Basin to meet and to share ideas and experiences and better ways to help assist in managing the traditional landscapes. That's really, really needed. To learn of certain areas of how they're working with their traditional knowledge and to use that portion into our own lands, you know, to assist to see if that'll help. And I know one of the things is those beetle bugs, you know, the really issue. And I heard of discussion of dragonflies being brought in, you know, to help. Where there's a problem, there's also another way through creation, you know, to help solve it. I truly believe that. We just need to really, I believe, settle down and take into account our traditional knowledge to help the lands, because I'm pretty sure that's basically what's going to happen. You know, what's really needed on this climate change is just terrible. But you see how ecology is already trying to switch and work with it. But unfortunately, man has their own viewpoints and takes it in a different direction. And I know you can't battle or shouldn't battle what nature is trying to do to preserve the lands. And I think we really need to work with her. And if you could see those key components she's bringing forth, those indicators, I believe we can really work together. It's just opening the minds up to others culturally, spiritually, and then putting it in, but it's against man's perspectives, and that seems to destroy a lot of things these days. So if you work with the tribes, I really hope you listen to their knowledge, to their sharing. And I know some of us prefer to speak amongst each other first and share limited information because our information is sacred. And to share so much takes away that sacredness. And it's important to be respectful of the tribes and vice versa. And I really hope we can really work out something for our pine nut trees right now. That's just one major importance in our way of life. But there's so much more that takes into consideration of the pine trees. You know, the insects, the animals, you know, the wildlife. And as a believer in our creation stories with the Animal Council, we really need to take care of our wildlife and our animals because we honor them through ceremony and songs and prayers, and we really need to speak up strong for them and their life and their habitat. Matna.
Well, I have the microphone. I'll give my TEK perspective. One, I wasn't there. But what I want to emphasize and impart with you is, even though I wasn't there, and I wanted to share or emphasize what Melissa shared with you earlier about anyone can join, you know, it has relations to this land base that we identified. But more importantly, I think we hear a lot of discussions about tribes emphasizing the issue or concern. And so there was the primary motivation that created the dialogue in the first place. And where I'm going with this is essentially people are waiting for agencies or the Secretary of Interior or whatnot to issue these directives for us to initiate dialogue. But this particular group didn't wait for those directives. They didn't wait for the dual secretary orders 3403, which transpired in September of 2021. So this group was meeting with federal agencies, federally recognized tribes, non-federally recognized tribes, and tribal people in general. And that, I believe, is the important part. So this, I would assert, would be an example of how any tribe or tribal group or persons or consortias have the opportunity to initiate dialogue and shape now, today's terms, co-management opportunities. So it's almost like from a federal standpoint, now the policies following this group. And so I think that's what I want to share with you. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to express great gratitude to Melissa and Cliff. And Cliff was the tech artist. If, gosh, it would have went so smooth, and Melissa, knowing her technology at one point, pulled us out of it and continued on with a great TAQ. So thank you, Cliff, and thank you, Melissa, for your time.
Thank you so much. There's one thing I wanted to add about the Tech Summit on top of it. So the third day was a field visit, and the power of sidebar conversations, right? So I had my plate of food, and I was talking to Ali Urza, a Forest Service researcher, and she said, you know, I really want to better understand pinyon. I don't really have the funding yet, but I want to have this conversation. And do you think we can open this up to the tribes? We're having all of this. This seems like the perfect. Absolutely. Her and I visited. We started talking about the tribes. We started talking about the Tech Summit and the committee. And that was, gosh, a year and a half ago. Since then, we just were recently awarded that funding from Sierra Nevada Conservancy for a planning to fund these field visits, to have these conversations. So that came from the Tech Summit. But it's not only information sharing. In my view, you got to have the right temperature in the room. There has to be a feeling of safety that we can have these conversations. And when those relationships are formed in that vulnerable space, then we can take that next step and share an idea that we're kind of like shaking our voice to have, but we're hopeful. And that's what's moving us forward. So seeds are planted, right? Literally and metaphorically in these opportunities. So with that, does anyone have any questions? I have a couple of questions for the panel I can ask, but thank you.
I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with what you've done. We have a good relationship with our forest on the Stanislaus, but we don't have a lot of lands because we're a little below the forest level. But we're trying to move forward with any relationship with Bureau of Reclamation. And it's not going anywhere. And we've gone up to Deb Halen, Brian Newland, pick one, and the Regional Pacific Office. We tried to get them even out to visit our area. And, you know, Zoom calls, I go to Folsom, and it's like, no, we're fine. How do you deal with that? How do you get them to move? Even though this seems very, I'm sure it wasn't easy in the beginning, but on that level, do you have thoughts? We're the Chicken Ranch tribe. And again, the forest has been great, but that's not where we need our. Well, we're dealing with both. BLM is a small part, but they too don't have it's the Bureau of Reclamation that really is holding the key. And it's interesting because BLM and the Bureau both have two different approaches, two different databases, two different. I sit on phone calls and they're kind of doing this. This has been going on for a while and we don't have time.
Yeah. Are you going to ask a question?
I was just gonna say a comment. I'm Tom Gusty, Bishop Paiute Tribe. We're fortunately to house BLM and Forest Service on our reservation on their SO office. But I think it's just one thing that we do is we push for quarterly meetings and just keep on bugging them on it. They don't show sometimes, or we can't show, but we're always bugging just a meeting to get that going. Fortunately, I do an internship program in the summertime that I bring to them a project that I want to do off the reservation. And fortunately, I've been working with their liaisons there that they've been finding money for me to go out there and do work. And then combining that money with other forests like the National Forest Foundation to go match that to do other work with in the areas that we're considering cultural resources and just restoration projects.
Okay, let me try to answer your question the old Indian way, because unlike Charlotte, she says she's becoming an elder. I am an elder. So back in 2016, I got involved with the Bi-State natural group with Sherry Rupert that called me, and unfortunately, I was scheduled to do a presentation, but unfortunately, climate change and all the above got into the picture, and there was a fire there in our Kern Valley area and almost wiped out my house, so I couldn't make it. Fast forward, there was a lapse, and then I came back to the group. But I think in answer to your question, the way I found it, the reason I joined was because I wanted to give a voice and input from the Tabatalabal people, because we share so much with the Owens Valley, the Mono people, because we're right in the middle of the Southern Sierra Mountains. The two rivers that come down from Mount Winnie, the two major rivers that come down is Balagay Up, which is the big river, the North Fork of the Kern River, and Coochie Beach Up. Balap, which means the little river, the South Fork, comes all the way down and forks at our canyon there. So I wanted to give a voice because we had a lot of drought, of course, like everyone else. We had the pine needle beetle that just literally devastated our area. We're right on the fringe of the desert, Mojave Desert, and the Kern Valley. The summit there is called Walker's Pass, and that used to be a traditional cultural pinyon picking area. That no longer exists because it just literally devastated. So I wanted to give a voice. And because we were so aligned with and shared the forest, the Inyo and the Sequoia forest, which are called now, we shared that with the Owens Valley people, especially people from Lone Pine and Big Pine in that area. So I wanted to give a voice to our people. This was a vehicle to do it in, but you have to be persistent. You have to keep after them. It's taken many, many years. We have been working with the Army Corps of Engineers. Took us, 16 years, I think. We're finally getting some things done with them in terms of repatriating some land, giving us some signage for some recognition of our cultural places, not religious places, but cultural places, because we have to be able to separate the two. Because I sure don't want to give them any religious and sacred places that will be put on a map, and so on and so forth. We're working with the Forest Service to rename some mountain ranges or a particular mountain. We have one that's called Nichols Peak, and we want to change it back to the traditional name that we have, Lelet, which is the place where the eagles roost. And it's significant to us because My great grandfather used to get eagles as pets from that mountain. So it's very, very, very significant. But beyond that, you got to look at your culture. You got to look at what these pinyones mean to you. If I can give you a little story, a very short version of when Coyote, which in our language is Isht, was hunting Tohil, the deer. He was up in Mount Whitney, got tired, saw a cave, went in the cave, and there was a deer there. Tohil says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm hunting you." He says, "No, I'm your friend." He says, "Let me give you to eat." So he gave him 3 pine nuts. Pine nuts have power in our culture. He gave him to eat. He went outside. When he went outside, he turned to stone. There at Mount Whitney, there's a rock at the bottom that we believe is Isht, that Tohil had turned. So it's very significant. Not only do you have to look at the physical part of what's happening to our land, you have to look at it, what it really means to us, mythically, religiously, sacredly. So yeah, you have to keep on going. You can't stop. You got to look for different avenues, look at, maybe a different agency to posture with you and for you. So yeah, absolutely. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Thank you.
Don't forget to feed them. It goes right to the stem.
I'm going to try to answer your question. So the sad reality is different agencies function differently. Bureau of Land Management functions differently, from the districts down to the field offices. In your particular instance, you're talking about the Stanislaus National Forest. From my personal knowledge, the forest just below that, the Sierra National Forest, they pride themselves even on tribal relations, and Chicken Ranch may not be in their necessary sphere of influence, if you will. But it would never hurt to engage them. And I think a lot of times when other agencies are embarrassed from others doing better than them, that peer pressure kicks in. So that's one point. So if you initiate a dialogue with some of the other forests that are better at it, then that creates dialogue, because inevitably each of the forest supervisors report to their supervisors. And so within the Pacific region, initiate dialogue, meet with their tribal liaison there in Vallejo, invite those individuals down. And so when you start meeting with them, and that's what's going to get the wheels rolling. So collectively, they have the Sierra National, I forget what they call it, management plan. I think they passed that would have been about 2008 ballpark. So that integrates pretty much all the forests within that Pacific region. And I think if you can look at that dialogue and look at what, even back then, they were supposed to collectively look at how they were going to implement their forest management in concert with communication with tribes. Bureau of Land Management, they just hired the state tribal liaison. And if you give me your contact information, I can give you his contact information. And then also Bureau of Reclamation, I have a contact there. She's based out of Temecula, but she would be able to find the liaison for that particular region under reclamation. So that unfortunate reality is, when you're looking at Bureau of Land Management or even Bureau of Reclamation, they both fall under interior directives. And so now with secretarial orders, and now with there's a new permanent instruction memorandum that was just signed September 13th. And so there's directives in there that stipulate what like the Bureau of Land Management should be doing with tribes when it comes to co-management. So there are newer mechanisms now that you can implement that would get the dialogue going.
I'd also like to add that as a TIPO, we work against several agencies. There's there's multiple of us in Owens Valley, Payahanadu, of a Bishop Paiute tribe, Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone tribe, my tribe, Big Pine Paiute tribe, for Independence, and Tipasha Shoshones. And we're all Tippos, and we all meet together, and we've been tackling these agencies all together with all 5 tribes. And we have bringing issues to the table and making them realize, you know, a different perspective in a nice way. But right now we're to the point where we're working with Caltrans in a very sacred area. It's terrible. But we've established tribal security 24/7 for our burials out there that they've never ever done before Caltrans. And we battled for that. And with our words and the lay of the land, but also the history is there. And that gives us the right to speak for our lands out there in these tables. It's written on those rocks out there in those mountains. Our sites are in those mountains everywhere. That gives you the right and the word to be at the table. And you really need to speak powerful in that direction and go with that with a good heart and good words, but speak strong for that and demand to be out there because you should be. But again, it's more unity and power. Like I said, there was one tribe battling both of these agencies, not getting too far. So we slowly started involving all of us, and all of us, we work really well together. As 5 Tippos, we collaborate on a lot. We just did a national register for Patsiata, Owens Lake nomination, which is going off to the keeper. And the commissioners that approved that were blown away by our nomination. And I'm really proud of that. We worked really hard on that diligently. It took like, 4 or 5 years for us to get that going. And it's at the point now where we're just waiting for a final word from BLM, and then it goes to the keeper. But again, that is something that we had to establish in unison, in unity, all together. And sometimes with agencies, that's the only way you're going to bust that door down, is if you come with multiple tribes proclaiming the same thing, proclaiming whose lands these truly are. And we need to be part of that management. We need to protect those traditional landscapes as a whole. Because why? Because those are the lands of our people. And you have to come up, and you can never give up, because they hear this so many times, but they've never seen people keep coming back and more, but from different tribes and everything. And that really helps. So to establish good relationships with the tribes around you and give that empowerment to all you guys, and all speak in unison for the same thing. I'm pretty sure you can do that. But like Wilfer said, you do have to, unfortunately, shame other agencies. We have done that. Just working with the Forest Service on the west side of us. They're implementing an inadvertent discovery plan, Sequoia Kings National Park. And they're just starting an inadvertent discovery plan. And I was glad to be part of that discussion and being part of those meetings, because I was able to tie in tribal security again, 24/7, recommended by the tribes when they deemed it necessary. So they put that in there because they want to make a model of this being the best plan ever. I said, well, if you want to do that, you got to give the voice to the people back to protect what they see that needs protection, in our own words and in our own thoughts, because nobody can call anything sacred and see it a certain way than us. And that's really important to speak for that. So it's really great to do that. But I want to keep plowing that in all these plans coming out through various agencies, so where it's just across the board everywhere in the United States, because it's really needed. I mean, you hear about so many stories of everywhere, and in our own place too. You know, we're finally making a difference, but you know, you really need to just hang in there. And like I said, and just find that one person that you can connect with, and you take them out to the lands and you show them how important it is. You share some words, not everything. My friend Richard Arnold would say you could give them the lock, but not the combination, you know, but it's true. You share just enough, you know, just to get them going and thinking and view the lands in our ways and our perspectives and how it should be, and why it's important that we work together, and then show that collaboration's a good way. A lot of people are just scared. A lot of agents are scared, like, oh, here comes the tribes. They're going to stop this project. Oh, they're going to take these lands back and stuff. No, sometimes it's just like, just to show them we can work together, collaboration, stewardship, land management and everything. And like Robert says, give those lands back their original names, the original names of the true people, and speak it when you're in meetings with them. Even like with our cultural resources and artifacts, you go to meetings, we call it in our language what that's called, not what the archaeologists have in their glossary. No, we tell them they come into our area. No, that's a Tusu, that's what we tell them, with different artifacts. We reclaim that. You have to reclaim that. Why? Because that's a true story of our people.
Well, thank you so much for that. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. Whew, my heart just grows. Another question, Cliff?
I had a discussion recently with the Washoe Tribal Environmental Program, and they brought up something I didn't know, which really concerns me, which is a reduction in pinyon jay population. We're going to have about 80% reduction, which is scary because they kind of scatter. It's cute. They get the seeds and they hide them, and they're supposed to get them later, but they forget where they are, and they're scattering the pinyon seeds around. And just discussion. I guess there's a bird expert. Are you guys working with a bird expert at all regarding looking at this and assessment or collecting information on that? I don't know if Rihanna. Yeah. Could you discuss that a little bit?
So the Pinyon Juniper Resiliency Project, there is also a poster in the back in the hallway that goes into a little more detail regarding the research. One of the partners is the Great Basin Bird Observatory. And during the field visits, we have a representative that is looking at what is the current status of the pinyon trees, and in correlation with wildlife and the birds. So, what aspects of the ecosystems are going down, declining. So that's one of the things that we're seeing is there is an impact on the birds, there's an impact on the trees. And the next step is quantifying and measurables. So it's great to have the Great Basin Bird Observatory as part of the team that is looking at that segment, which the tribes already know all of this. This is just further information that's adding to the research. So that's a great question. Thank you. Anyone? Yes, Sally?
Okay, Melissa, could you, if you can hear me, can you tell us again what your role is? Are you a tribal liaison or a Forest Service staff member? And maybe another question would be how you're trying to incorporate the youth. And I know Tom talked a little bit about that, but maybe you could elaborate.
Thank you so much for that question. That's a really great question. So I think everyone can see my heart is in this. But what is underscoring all of my actions is law, policy, and reg, directives from my boss. So I was tasked when I first, I'm in love with this topic. And it was really interesting. The first month on the job, my boss walks into my office and he's like, oh, by the way, you're going to be on the Bi-State Tribal Natural Resource Committee on behalf of the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest, and you're going to assist them in the meetings in any way that they need. And I think my smile stayed on my face for 3 days after that. So my job, my 9 to 5, is as a tribal liaison. I see it as a conduit for both sides, between the tribes and the federal agencies, collaborating, coordinating, information exchange, and relationship building. My role in this committee is help make the temperature in the room warm enough to facilitate information sharing and relationship bonding. So, but I bring the law, policy, and reg, whatever's happening on the forest, I will share those updates as one of the agencies. But I also see myself as kind of the the net. So if there's a need in any regard with the meetings or a field day or with the tech summit, that I can catch that need and provide that support so the mission of the committee is achieved. So I'm being tasked by my boss to do this, and this is part of my performance review. And in a perfect world, you get to work the job you love, right? So in a way, I'm in this perfect world because this is my dream job. And that's why I'm smiling so big, because it brings my heart so much joy to be here with all of you having this conversation. So my participation is like a rope. It's the weaving of the heart and mind. So hopefully that answers. The question was, do I do training for other tribes? I'm really big, like Will, on relationship building. Is there another question? The youth. Thank you, the youth. So I'm so incredibly excited. One of the committee members is Dean Tonina. He works with BLM in Carson City. And he is very passionate about incorporating youth into these land management actions, into ecosystem restoration projects. And so he is the lead on the education subcommittee. What does that mean? What is the education subcommittee? We're having that conversation right now. What does that entail? What do the tribes want? What does Dean, what is his vision for this? And my sense is the vision is to bring the elders and youth together to look at these areas like the Bodie Hills in August and say, what can we do to heal this land? What can we do to bring this back to the greatness that it should be? So we as a committee are exploring that, how to pull in federal, state funding, maybe nonprofit, and how can we support tribal youth in the education subcommittee? But that's a big conversation that's formulating right now. So any ideas or recommendations on how to elevate that? Robert?
And I think that's a very important component of perpetuating our culture, because I think you'll find, like we have in the Valley, that our youth may not be interested. Our youth are kind of disengaged. So we need to bring them back in the fold. They need to know where their cultural areas were traditionally. What I did recently, and I think it's a matter of you taking it upon yourself to be proactive in some of the things that you do. I went up to the area I was talking about in Walker's Pass, where it's really blighted, and did a video and named some of the plants in our language and so on and so forth, showed them where the cultural areas were. Then I contrasted it as where the cultural areas are in terms of thriving pinyon trees, which are very scarce. But you have to take them out, show them the videos, show them how to use the pahal to grind the acorn, show them how to leach the acorn by the waterbed, by the river, as opposed to doing it the way we do now in a sterile environment such as a kitchen. You got to show them the old traditional way. But you have to take the effort to do that for them. Hopefully there's funding down the road for us so we can do that. But I think the important thing is you have to engage the youth, because if you don't, you're going to lose them right now.
And the project that Dean's doing is we're bringing a conservation youth group together. And we're not just tackling our area because we're basically the only ones there. But there are a few tribal kids, but we're going from Bridgeport, clear down to Robert's area to bring these kids together. Plus, to get to know each another, like our elders did. We went and visited this whole valley with our grandparents to know who your relatives are and to have those conversations and get to know one another. And that's missing in a lot of our Indian cultures. So we're inviting youth clear down to Timbisha, to Death Valley, to come be part of this project. And on the board, on the floor with us will be dean's students as well, teaching the kids how to gather seed, how to gather the pinyon, all the plants around that we eat, what we ate, and we'll have the elders there also doing this encampment. So it's going further, and hopefully we get the youth interested in going on into fire, going on into being a botanist, going on into biology, just not. And really, we need those archaeologists to help us save their land.
Thank you so much. If anyone has an email that they would like me to forward job announcements, there's a resource assistant position that's being advertised and regarding climate change. And that's for students. Once you complete the program, then you qualify for a Forest Service job. So if there's anyone who would like me to send them job announcements, it would be nationwide, not just in Nevada. So I just wanted to add that. I'll be sharing that. We have a couple of minutes left. Any more questions? No? Okay, well, from our panel, any kind of parting words that you'd like to, Cliff, okay.
When I was in the back, someone asked, is there going to be a TAK Summit, another one coming up?
That's a really great question. TEK Summit. So we've brought that up, and we're talking about that at some point in the future. But one of the things that are at the forefront that's been brought to our attention on the committee is let's showcase something amazing. Let's showcase the opinion subcommittee and what we're achieving, and the education subcommittee. What are the tribal youth? Let's get in deep. Let's get engaged. Let's make amazing work happen, and then we're going to showcase that at the Tech Summit.
Put together a team, a TEK committee itself, because it's a lot of work, and be able to still continue on with the BTNRC meetings and have the TEK planning team separate. So it is in the making. There is conversation.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, we're down to our last minute. I wanted to show this. I'm super excited. This was through the governor, Steve Sisolak. He participated in a Tech Summit, and he awarded us with the certificate of recognition. And not that we need a piece of paper that tells us what we're doing is the right thing, but it sure is heck nice to get that validation. And in the world of state and federal, a piece of paper means something, right? So, yeah. So this is the first of many acknowledgments, but I think it goes without saying that the most powerful this committee has is heart, and this great minds when magic happens, which is why we're here today. And I just want to thank all of you for being available, and thank you for being here and sharing your interest and learning about us. And if you or anyone you know that might be interested in being part of this conversation and even just listening, please join us. Oh, one last question. I can. Oh, the virtual.
My question is, will this be workable up in my area? We have very little coordination, communication with the Forest Service and the BLM, but we're putting pressure on the BLM. But I'd like to see something like this happen up in our northeastern Nevada area. Just my comment.
Danelle, can you pass this to?
You know what? This is a good conversation for our committee to have at the next meeting. I've been asked in the TIPOs previously to work with other agencies to show them the model on how to do things and how to work tribe. It's not really hard, but apparently, you know, it has to be shown to be proven that it can be done. And I think that'd be really good. Like if we, as a committee, can go and meet with several agencies and tribes if they want, just to get that, it can work. This is what we do. This is how we work together to make it work with other agencies. I've been in so many different groups where we've been the model of everything, like with Nellis Air Force Base, you know, using them as a model to work with the Navy base, to work with Fort Irwin, you know, to get those tribal collaborations going within those lands, because there's so many sacred areas on the military bases. I don't know, it's just really great to be part of a group that is doing something so positive, and hopefully to share that so it widens out onto other tribes and other agencies to show them that we can all work together. And it is important that we work together, and we need to establish that partnerships, I believe. And I'd be willing to attend and to help out some way or somehow with any other tribe.
Thanks for that question, Dallas, at the last minute. To answer your question, this, again, to emphasize, I don't know if you were here earlier in the presentation, but this was created from the tribes and tribal representatives and tribal members. So it wasn't driven by agencies. And so that's what I emphasized earlier. And I think that is the foundation. So it took the work and effort of this group, the executive committee, generating bylaws. And then I think that's where, and as Melissa said, their heart. And so inevitably, that's how the traction took hold.
For all our attendees, we'll include this PDF in the chat box on this session. All the sessions are being recorded, so you'll be able to come back and find all the information in here.
So actually, kudos really goes to Sherry, because she was on the Indian Commission and she got us all snowballing even farther. Sherry Rupert.
We're over.
We're going to be going into another session here. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to convene with you right after. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day.